Welcome, everybody, to another Unboxed Pod. This is episode 47. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen. Hope everybody's doing well at 47. Let's get another one underway.
Yeah, we got great weather down here in Florida. I don't know. What do you guys like up there in the Carolinas?
We're good today, about 70 degrees, and going to be halfway decent this weekend. But next week, 46, 47 degrees. I'm ready for some springtime.
Yeah, hopefully wherever you're listening to us from, you're enjoying some decent weather. If not, our apologies. We got some stories for you guys today. It's been a busy week for AI development, even more so than normal. And Microsoft's got its hand in a lot of these stories we're going to talk about. We also got some news about Build, and we got some stuff about Windows. We haven't talked about Windows in quite a bit, at least not in detail. Just so you guys can get some of the headlines that we're going to cover, and you can kind of skip ahead or skip all together and just go to our gaming section at the very end. You're more than welcome to. But here's what we're talking about. Microsoft Build we have an announcement on the days, and we're going to kind of pontificate on what is going to be said or announced at Build. We got the Xbox kicking off its Fan Fest, and what kind of things we expect to see at the showcase. It's another gaming event, about 2 weeks. 2.5, 3 weeks, separated from the first one we just had in January, which was pretty impressive. We got Sam Altman deciding not to take legal action against DeepSeek, and why we included Microsoft in this news, because hey, they're one of the biggest partners, and what this means for them. ARM Holdings has withdrawn its Qualcomm complaint. We talked about that briefly about the big court case in December. Now we'll tell you what essentially has become the outcome of a short-lived legal battle between the two. We also have Microsoft's Microsoft's AI company, the new business that started, and how the CEO of that company has started already poaching people from Google's company. So we got a hiring blitz for Microsoft. We also talked about Mark Zuckerberg and his new definition of open source, and why the open source community is very upset with him about it. We also talked about Microsoft 365 users losing free VPN. I mean, it wasn't very impressive to begin with, but it was free, and you're losing free, so that always sucks. And then we'll round off our pod with details about new features coming to Windows 11, and then we'll obviously be talking about what kind of gaming we've been doing or plan to do this weekend. With that being said, I'll let David take over. You can ramble on from here.
Yeah, let me ramble just a little bit, guys, if you don't mind. We know we're in the first quarter of 2025, so we're kind of getting a feel of what the event for all these companies are going to be this year. We've already had a small Surface announcement for the Surface for Business laptop and tablet that we talked about last week. Well, Microsoft is hitting us up with a new one. For me, one of the more important ones of the year. We have Microsoft Build 2025. Registrations are open. You can go in and register, but we don't know yet exactly what we'll be talking about, but we know when. We're looking at May 19th through the 22nd. Now, if you're astute and paying attention here, you're noticing that Microsoft has given us an extra day this year. Last year and in years past, it's been a 3-day event. Now we're getting that 4th day in there. So I'm looking at it as there's going to be a pivot here. We know that Build is mainly meant for developers, and Microsoft is going to discuss what's new in Windows in terms of what's being developed, what developers can do. And last year it was very AI centric, of how you could build your apps for AI. And they showed off some of their partners, how some of their partners were using AI, mainly in some of their apps. I think things like Instacart and some of the everyday services were highlighted as to how Copilot was being used. But now this year it's going to be interesting now that we have the emergence of this thing called DeepSeek that we'll talk about a little more later here in the pod. What does Microsoft do at Build this year? This is the year that I think all options are on the table. I know my buddy here, Kareem, put up a post earlier this week that Amy Hood was saying nothing to see here. Everybody keep going forward. But I find it hard to believe that the investors are going to stick to that notion that there's nothing to see. I think there's plenty to see. And I'm interested to see what Microsoft does. I'm sure we're going to hear the same introduction and improvement of existing services in Azure and Copilot as well. I'm more interested in what messaging pivot do they get. Let me be clear. AI is not going anywhere. I'm just interested to know, how does Microsoft change the messaging to developers as to what they can do, how quickly they can do it, and probably most importantly to Microsoft, how quickly can they get something deployed to start paying an Azure bill to pay those disgruntled investors back?
Yeah, if I had to guess, it's basically, hey, you're already using Office. Why leave? Why make things harder for yourself? Yeah, it's open source, but it's a lot of extra work. And here are more tools, free tools, to keep you here, if I had to guess. So we're going to see a lot of, to your point, a lot of API existence. And the other thing, I mean, I forget the phrase that they used to use for Microsoft. It was like embrace something extinguish. I think they're going to do very much of this. They've already started embracing DeepSeek, saying like, hey, we will work with that. If you're using that, you could also use it with our things already. So it's, and to the detriment of OpenAI, I would assume, but they're saying, hey, instead of marking it as a threat and trying to fight it and attack it and wasting money on it and making it bigger than it needs to be, we'll just say, hey, we support it. And if you like some of the features that or the accessibility that you're getting with our partnership, there's even more you can get if you just jump over to our stack. If you start using, our small language models instead of this free one. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but you get a little bit more from it. Now, at the rate of development for DeepSeek, that is going to be the question. If they're able to maintain this level of innovation, that's going to probably hurt them. But if it's like, hey, here's our initial gambit, nobody saw us really coming, but everyone's kind of adapted now, and now we're all kind of evolving and innovating at the same pace. Now it's just whether or not you want to wait for the open source version of this and do your work on top of it, or go to the store and buy a prepackaged version, like a pre-cooked meal, and say, you know what, I just have to pop this in the microwave, versus, hey, I gotta hand roll the ravioli from scratch, kind of thing. So that's my interpretation of it. We'll see. Again, I could be entirely wrong. Open source could be the make it or break it situation that a lot of investors are seeing. But as panicked as they were, the companies have seemed to start bouncing back, because again, they realize that yes, it's open source and it's a disruptor, but we've already got this investment and we're poised to take a bigger market share because we have the branding already. But we'll see where it goes from there. Do you want to talk about gaming? I know we love talking about gaming on this pod.
Yes, we do. Let's see what we have here. We have another event to talk about. This one is February the 24th. We have ID at Xbox.
Yes.
This is also one of my favorites, because this is, for those that don't know, ID is for your indie developers, your independent developers, your smaller companies, your folks that aren't working with the $1 million and $1 billion budget. I look forward to these. I'm excited that Microsoft does these. It starts Monday, February the 24th at 10. Let's make sure I get my time zones right. At 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time, across all IGN platforms. IGN is kind of your host here. We're going to see titles like 11-Bit, Big Fan, Critical Reflex. Let's see. We're going to see companies like Game Source Entertainment, No More Robots, Panic, PlayStack, Raw Fury, Thunder Lotus, Cult Games, Team 17, Curve, and Don't Nod. Now, before you dismiss these as you're not hearing Activision, you're not hearing Blizzard, you're not hearing Turn 10 Studios, think for just a minute of where some of our greatest games come from. The one that immediately comes to mind to me are two that I play. One called Delta Force, that is I'm gonna call it a battlefield killer. There, I said it. Battlefield.
Those are some bold words, my friend.
They are, but if you've played the game, I think the words are very appropriate. Battlefield is a 13 year series that has kind of fallen flat with the latest release of 2042. We know EA tried to go in and rework it a little bit, but there's been one called Delta Force come out that is done by a smaller studio with much less funds that, to be honest, is a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more realistic. So don't count out your indie studios. Some of them are in it to produce a good experience, because ultimately the experience is what you pay for. One more example. There was I cannot remember the name. Somebody leave it in the comments. There was a Battlefield clone that came out last year. The graphics were nothing but stick figures. That's it. That's all they were. The soldiers were nothing but stick figures. And it didn't look very good, but it played wonderfully. And it was very popular for a while. It was on Steam. And I think the indie developer sold it for like $19.95. Okay, thousands of people bought that game. So think about the money that indie developer got to keep moving to build something else. So don't leave your indie developers out when you're choosing your games. Some of them are great games if you give them an opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think my best case scenario, for indie developers, I think it's Dead Labs, right? And the original State of Decay. I don't know if you ever got a chance to play that, but it was an amazing game when it first launched as this little indie thing. And then Microsoft, I guess, saw the potential of it, invested in it. They came out State of Decay 2, which, again, another great zombie survival game. And they are now amongst some of the top games Microsoft, or at least people who get Xbox, play. Everyone's got big expectations for State of Decay 3. It just seems like it's been progressing since then. But again, they start off with this, small indie game, survival game, and it has now become kind of a mainstay within the Xbox community. So to your point, hey, when there's potential, you could be, amongst the first people to be like, hey, I saw the showcase, I invested in one of these games, and now, 3-4 years later, it's one of the biggest properties Microsoft has because more people got into it because it started off as just a small project. So, to your point, don't dismiss them. Try them out, play them. Most of the time, they're usually at max $40. Usually $30 or cheaper because of that too. So if you're just looking for something fun to play while you're in between your AAA studio games, this is a good showcase to kind of keep an eye out for. I'm moving on to something less fun about gaming, but if you're into the world of tech drama, we got it here for you. We got Sam Altman playing nice and is no longer seeking legal action against DeepSeek. Now, as soon as DeepSeek came out, it was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction, like, "Hey, we gotta stop this, and we gotta do some legal maneuvering to shut them out because they're going to be eating our lunch." And so it was kind of a sink or swim situation for them. But it looks like they have thought otherwise and are saying, you know what, maybe we overreacted and we're not going to pursue any legal course so far as of right now to sue them for, maybe licensing or infringement or anything like that. Because they said their main argument was that DeepSeek their model was trained on their model. And I'm sure it absolutely was. I don't put it beyond the Chinese developers. And, I think they had some UK partners as well to have done that. But this is the rub when it comes to AI. It's trained on the entire internet that, Sam Altman didn't pay for. It wasn't like he licensed all the information that is now pumping through OpenAI. He just let it loose on the internet and said, "Oh, if there's something on the internet that you cherished or you thought about, sorry." That's basically what he said. So he doesn't have that strong of a standing to come after DeepSeek for that specific thing, especially now that they've made it open source. It isn't like they are, licensing, stolen information and then making a profit off of it. They're just saying, "Hey, we spent a few $100 million or whatever to get this thing up and going, and now we're letting it free to the rest of the world. And if people find a value in that, they can add their own monetization on top of it." So, what are your thoughts on OpenAI? Sam Altman saying, "Hey, we're going to sue." On second thought, wait a second. Oh, the other thing I wrote in my article before I let you go, this might actually help you, is that with any type of court case, there's discovery, and I feel like that could be a big boomerang for them and Microsoft, because they are pretty close buddies. If the courts start digging into, wait a minute, how exactly does your model work? Exactly what was it trained on that you want to try and sue for? You start opening that Pandora's box, that can of worms, and Microsoft and OpenAI could be in a world of hurt.
Exactly. I don't think anybody in AI wants a lot of people doing a lot of deep digging right now, especially OpenAI, Sam Altman, and like you said, even Microsoft, because we have to remember when Sam started this, he didn't ask nobody's permission. He just basically did what Google does and says, "Okay, here's my crawler. You can't turn it off for you website server folks out there. You can turn off Google crawler." But Sam says, "No, I'm just going to crawl data. I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to do what I want with that data. The heck with you." And when you get people to look into that, there's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be privacy concerns that are going to come up. Then the relationship with Microsoft gets thrown in there and gets tossed into that twist. Well, did Microsoft approve this? Did Microsoft, the $1 billion Microsoft, say that this was okay? Oh, and while we're looking, these investments that you've been giving, are they really investments? Is there ownership here? Is there some type of control? Is there some type of say that Microsoft has that they shouldn't? This is, things that Microsoft has been they've been investigated for this before. And
Yeah.
Sam Altman certainly does not want his cash cow to be modified in any way, much less poked and prodded.
Oh,
So,
definitely. And you don't want that kind of information to float across to your competitors who, for all that I dislike about Elon, he's a vulture and he's looking for that opening because he's got a personal vendetta for OpenAI, something that he may arguably feel he let go too early, because he did help kind of start funding it when it was more like the DeepSeek, where it was more research based. And at some point, Sam Altman decided, "Hey, we're going to make it for profit. We're gonna take this research, unlike DeepSeek right now, and we're going to make money off of it." So if it comes to discovery, like, "Hey, this is what it's trained on," this could lead to Elon and Grok and all of his ambitions to be like, "Hey, here's our opening. Now we can sue based on this, or we could find cause for disrupting this particular thing because, hey, it's documented. It's now free to the public. I couldn't hire my own private investigators to figure it out, but the courts figured it out, and now I'm going to leverage that."
I'm gonna stop here, but I do want to say one thing. As these competitors come out, let them be. Sam, I like what you've done for the industry for the most part. We have entered a new era here, but Sam, just accept the fact that what you did to start yours was wrong. So let everybody else build their models the way they see fit and be quiet. If anybody else needs to do any suing, let them do it. That's kind of the way I feel about it.
He's just going to have to innovate faster, apparently. With that being said, here's another thing that kind of fizzled out, so to speak, that started off with a big bang, which is ARM Holdings withdraws Qualcomm complaint. Now, you might be thinking, what is ARM Holdings
Yes.
versus ARM? ARM is the architecture that that Snapdragon is based off of, that the M series is based off of, a lot of mobile chips are based off of. That's the architecture. ARM Holdings is a company that actually housed a lot of the developers, and engineers, and processes to make that initially. What they did was they decided, the partner is Qualcomm, and Qualcomm bought a company called Nuvia, which was started by a bunch of Apple engineers, the same people who worked on the M series chip. They said, "Hey, we're leaving the company. We're going to start our own effort." We started Nuvia. Qualcomm was like, "Hey, you guys seem very smart. The M series is doing, gangbusters. We're going to take you. We're going to buy you." The problem is that Qualcomm already had a deal with ARM Holdings on how they would purchase their chips and to what extent. When they bought Nuvia, ARM Holdings was like, "Hey, our deal has now changed. You guys have bought another company that makes ARM chips based on our architecture. We're going to need a second license for that." And Qualcomm was like, "Nope, we have our original deal. We went out and made a separate purchase that has nothing to do with you guys." But ARM still tried to shake them down. So they took them to court. They also threatened to revoke their license if they didn't abide by this. It was a big kerfuffle. It was supposed to be, this big hang up, this big, overblown case that, started in December and would drag out in the court system for months on end. It looks like everyone came to the senses, and ARM is saying, "You know what? We fold. We're seeing the writing on the wall. This isn't going to go in our favor. We're gonna let Qualcomm, keep their original deal with us, because they're still selling a ton of computers now, in addition to their phones. And instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, we're gonna take our money, or whatever we get yearly from them, and we're gonna figure out a new path going forward." What are your thoughts on them backing down from this?
Thank you. I want to say that first, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. I thought this was a little crazy in the beginning, to be honest. And I'm glad that the ARM CPUs, the Snapdragon Copilot PCs, to use Microsoft's term, will continue for now uninterrupted. For me, these PCs is what kept me from buying a MacBook. I'm going to be completely honest. These units kept me from purchasing a MacBook. I'm talking to you on a Snapdragon PC, and I was talking to you on the same Snapdragon PC when we first reported that this was going to be an issue, that it was November of last year that these PCs could be going away. I don't want to see them go away. I don't like to see these type of arguments. These type of arguments is what stems innovation. And I think that's part of the reason we haven't seen new Qualcomm Snapdragon units announced. We've heard rumblings, but we've not seen any new ones hit the Best Buy shelf. We've not seen any new ones hit the Lenovo website recently, the Dell website, the HP website. So I think some of these OEMs were kind of just sitting here with their arms crossed. Why are we going to build millions of dollars of units that may or may not stay on the market? So yeah. I want to see these new units start flowing, and let's go after that big fruit over there in California, and let's see what we can do.
In addition to also losing initial court battle, the judge basically throwing it out. In December, Snapdragon X Series had more than 10% share of the greater $800-ish marketplace of Windows PC sales.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'm sure, again, like I said, if ARM decided to squash this whole thing, they'd be losing out on revenue generated from Qualcomm, one of their biggest buyers, licensees, from both PC and from mobile. So, it basically biting your nose to spite your face kind of situation here. And I think, like I said, they're just going to have to think of another strategy, because, again, everyone's kind of going into making their own chipsets. So, again, this isn't looking good for them in the long run. In the short term, it saves them. It saves their investors. It saves a lot of holding with the stock. But I'm sure, and, I think they had their quarterly earnings recently, and I think they were doing pretty well, relatively well. But they are going to need to find a new solution going forward, because you can't just be like, hey, we make the chip architecture and we license it out to people, because everyone's starting to make their own chips. And so when everyone's making their own chips, what is your next pivot? With that being said, we got talking about pivots. Microsoft has poached a couple developers, or I guess some of the geniuses, over from DeepMind, which is the Google run version of their AI sector, so to speak. And I believe it's let me make sure I get the key hires. Mustafa Suleyman, which is the former co-founder of DeepMind. He recruited, I believe, Marco Tagliaschi and Zalan Boros. I butchered that. I apologize. But these are guys, again, who worked over DeepMind, and they worked specifically on projects for audio and audio overviews. Stuff is like Astra as well, and DeepMind's AI agent. So, who knows what they become when they get folded in, but we could be seeing some of that cool, what is it, text to music? I don't know what it's called, but the text to sound or whatever, AI generation tools that Google is currently working on. We can start to see that coming to Copilot potentially, or whatever other small language models that Microsoft is using. And you could do it again for a whole host of things, going from translation to summarization on audio calls, all these kind of things. If you're in the corporate world, if you're in the creative world, again, you can start to just text out and get brainstormed ideas as far as creating music, audio, songs, and isolation, and all that kind of stuff. So, in the realm of AI talent being finite, what are your thoughts on Microsoft getting, these big players from Google and not the other way around?
Let's move forward. And to get somebody from Google on AI, I think is two things. One, there's probably a good paycheck involved. Two, they made their money at Google, so I think there's more than a paycheck. I think when you see somebody with where we are in AI go from Google to Microsoft, they've seen something they like in what Microsoft is doing, in what potential is. Kind of like when Panos Panay bounced over to Amazon. That was something, he made his money at he made his money at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Amazon is paying him bad, but he saw something that was going on over there that he liked.
Yeah.
And I think with some of these top AI people going from Google to Microsoft, it's good for Microsoft because, like you said, the text to music stuff will come. Some of the stuff that Google's maybe doing that Microsoft is not, or maybe Google's doing a little better that Copilot is not. But like you said, this talent is finite. And it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple years, if that long, what these employees do. How many of them bounce from here? I'm going to go work on this for a while. Well, we want you over here. Here's another, I'm going to make up a number. Here's another $50,000 a year. Okay, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to work on that for a little while. So secrets are going to start to be shared across the AI landscape, which kind of goes back to the Sam thing. It's going to upset some folks, but I think in the end, we all end up better.
Now, you say that. What if I told you that the guys that were just poached are looking to come take our job right now? These guys in particular were working on a project about I think it's a popular podcast generating feature, basically taking the headlines and stories from the internet and creating conversational podcasts from it. It's a nifty tool. It's pretty cool, and I think this is part of that business aspect of being able to, again, summarize text and make it audio and make it conversational, so that it does become your actual assistant. Like, instead of just saying, hey, summarize these for me and they give it bullet points, this is now conversation on the context of what these things, of what was said or what was written down, and how it relates to other things across the web. So you get praise for them, but they are making a podcast tool where they could basically replace us. They're just going to take the headlines and have their own AI host, and you can get your podcast whenever you want, however you want.
Well, hold on. I guarantee you they will all sound like Rosie the Robot from the Jetsons, and they will not have our killer personalities.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was watching with my kids, and Rosie was pretty cool. She was one of my favorite. Dang it! No, that's. I mean, we're probably months to years away from that. So hopefully we can get squeeze out a few more podcasts, and if you folks like us, we'll move on to Twitch. They can't stream games like us. Maybe that's where we need to
That's
find
it.
Our new legs. Our last business related kind of thing is we got the open source community saying, "Hey, Mark Zuckerberg, go back home. You're drunk," because he's decided he wants to kind of redefine the rules for open sourced AI development, and he wants to kind of redefine them in a way that obviously will work in Meta's favor. I think Meta is claiming that AI models like Llama are open source, but again, experts disagree. Meta's models do not meet the open source initiative binary standards. Again, there's a financial motive and a regulatory one for him to kind of come out and say, "Hey, our proprietary systems are open source and work in his favor." It's to basically get around the EU's AI Act's exception for open source, which could save Meta millions of dollars with this way. Basically, what they're trying to do, make sure I get the details right. Under the recently passed EU AI Act, there's an exemption for AI systems released under free and open source licenses, which could save Meta, a pretty penny, to the tune of hundreds of millions, actually, if not billions, depending on how big AI becomes. So if they can claim that Llama is open source, then the EU AI Act will say, "All right, you're free to not have to pay anything for it, and we'll allow it in our society or whatnot, in our area or region." So that's why he's kind of coming out and saying it. But again, AI experts are saying no. There are parts of the code that can't be seen. There's a lot of proprietary stuff in here that we don't have access to. Mark Zuckerberg's lying. What are your thoughts on that?
Mark Zuckerberg is full of something that I won't say on this podcast.
Nice.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't have a problem with his company necessarily. I have a problem with his train of thought. That this is open source and we can do what we want. Well, let's tie that back into the other third of the podcast. Sam Altman thinks he could do what he wanted. This is where AI has a problem. Mm-hmm. Nobody communicates with nobody, and everybody's afraid of Big Brother. Everybody's afraid that somebody's going to step in and they're going to put some regulations on it. And I hate to tell you, the one that may do it is, depending on who you like, who you voted for, the people that may do it are in the White House. Legally, whether they are there legally or illegally could be up for question. But the people that may do it are in the White House. And I'm up for some type of legislation controlling how some of these people compete, what they can access, what they can't access, what they're, how they must communicate. The free for all will eventually come to a stop. That includes Zuckerberg. Maybe Zuckerberg needs to go do something else. That's what I'll say. Maybe he needs to worry about something else.
I'm sure he's worried about a ton of stuff coming at him from all different angles. I think a lot of AI people who are invested into this technology, into this bubble, I will say it, are scrambling right now.
Yes.
Because a lot of things are coming to a head a lot sooner than I think they predicted. Not because of DeepSeek, just because of the what's the word I'm looking for? There's a term I forget people use when they don't care about something.
Nonchalant.
It's apathy. The apathy,
apathy
that everyone's showing towards AI currently. It was fun and it was cute when people were interacting with it and they were getting a lot of hallucinations, because that was the draw. It was like, hey, what would this crazy algorithm say to me? That was the initial news. And I think we can all go back a year and a half to when journalists were writing in that, hey, my AI is in love with me and wants me to leave my wife. That was fun and that was novel. Now that they've gotten rid of that and they've cleaned it up, people are saying, what do you do? What is it that makes you fun, interesting, or useful? And right now we can't seem to figure that out just yet. But all these companies keep telling investors, we will figure it out. We will get to AIG, which is this idea that, hey, we will automate the automation versus you even having to do any of that. We'll save you that. And so now that's been the next field, the next goalpost movement from these people. And Zuckerberg trying to find a way around the EU's AI Act by saying it's open source. It's par for the course. He needs to make money. He's head of a company. I just don't think Meta's AI efforts are all that distinguishable from Copilot, from Gemini, from any of those things. And his user base, I believe, is aging out of the AI use, unfortunately for him. It isn't like he's got the TikTok crowd who will then move into using AI through the next 30 years of their life. He's got boomers who are like, what is AI and how is it different from the Siri that I don't like? So he's got that problem, I think, going forward, as opposed to Microsoft shoving it down business users' throats. Like, hey, you're going to use it because you use Office. And until you stop using Office, you're going to use Copilot. And Google has Gemini. You're on your phone. We are there too. And here's the things that are making it useful. And again, that age range spans from kids in middle school to your grandma saying, hey, I accidentally pressed this button. Now it's taking screenshots. They have a much wider audience. I think Facebook, Meta, Instagram, to a certain extent, have, unless they can figure out a way to move their audience into using AI, are going to be stuck. They have a big audience. They're probably the biggest one out of the three major ones. But how much of that is active and how much of that is youthful, and going and future forward?
I think there's also you're all over it. I think there's also another problem. The demos that we see are repetitive actions. Like one of the first ones I saw was, and I want to make sure I don't set off somebody's AI assistant, was creating a grocery list.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things was give me some meal ideas. How often do people really think like that? I don't think we're in tune to the way people are thinking, because working on websites in my life and doing some development work, I can tell you one thing. Social media is where it's at. And you can pick your platform. That's where people spend a good 80 to 90% of their time. And I think, people don't pick up Apple Notes all the time, for example, to make their grocery list. Like, Tim Cook might imply during a presentation that we go through that effort to do that synchronization. People's lives are hectic. People's lives are busy. People's heads are spinning because we've got a job. We've got our side gig. Oh, we've got all these things on our phone we want to keep track of, the TikToks. We want to make sure we, view everybody's TikTok every day, see everybody's YouTube. They've got to find a way to take this AI technology and shove it right in the middle of what everybody does every day and say, look, this is how we make it better. This is how we make it easier. And that's the only way it's going to get people to drop their, and I've said it from the beginning. We've done 40, this is pod 46. I think I've probably said it 40 out of 46. You've got to break people away from the traditional way of doing things and convince them that this is the way. We have not done that yet, and I don't see anything in sight that does it. Now, do you and I use AI? Yes, I've probably used it a dozen times today already, but this is what we do. Well, we see the benefit.
Here's the other thing, and this is ironic. It's the Windows Phone situation.
Yeah.
It is commoditization of your product and your service serving the greater good of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Windows Phone tried to coalesce apps to give you the necessary information, and app developers like Facebook were like, hell no, like if people don't see the big blue icon, we can't monetize that. We can't say, hey, the information you got is from Facebook. You need to go to the Facebook app and see our ads and and pay for our services. If Windows Phone just scrapes the information. And that is what AI is trying to do across the board. It's saying, hey, and this is part of the reason why it's not working well on phones is because they don't have access, or they're not going to get access from any app that needs to make money. You can't scrape like, hey, Uber Eats and scrape Facebook in order to coalesce like, hey, I'm heading to a friend's house, this particular friend, and this friend has an allergy to whatever. Give me some food options in the neighborhood that we can have at around 7 o'clock because we're going to have dinner and wine or whatever. And I want to order beforehand. That AI can't go out and be like, all right, well, your friend's allergic to, hummus or whatever, but here are things that don't, here are the restaurants around that don't serve hummus. Here are their hours and here's their menu. Because it won't have access to those two separate things. You have to still manually go in and do that. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're like, I can just do it myself. I can go look on Google Maps, and I know the friend. I don't need to go into Facebook to find it.
And I'll put a button on my part here, but I've mentioned this before, and I think we have talked about it. Copilot, Google Gemini, Facebook Meta, Amazon Rufus, DeepSeek,
and whatever the hell Salesforce is doing.
Yeah, whatever Salesforce is up to, that they do not intermingle. And I get that investors of each one have invested so much money. They want me to have a Gemini subscription. They want me to have a Copilot subscription. They want me to have all these things. I get it. But people don't function that way. They have Gmail accounts. And we left off Apple Intelligence. Maybe it's a sign that we left them off. No offense to Apple. I'm not making fun of Apple here, but maybe it's a sign that we left them off. Yeah. People have Gmail accounts, but they also have that iPhone. Apple Intelligence knows nothing about a Gmail account. Gemini knows nothing about an Apple phone. So to your point, I'm not going to sit here and play between apps. I'll just do it myself. I'll do it the old-fashioned way. I'll pull out my notepad. I'll pull out my iPad with my Apple Pencil and just jot it down the same way I always have. AI never gets touched. AI never gets used. That investor gets nothing.
You hear that, people? AI, figure it out. The last story we got is, or not last, but the next story we have is Microsoft 365 users losing free VPN. What do you got on this?
Well, we are a Microsoft coverage company, Microsoft centric, and I didn't even know that this existed. As far as a user, I do remember us reporting on it, yes, but I did not know that this product actually existed. And I have been a Microsoft Office personal and business subscriber for more than a decade now. So Microsoft has decided to get rid of the Microsoft 365 VPN. If you knew about it, it was part of the Microsoft 365 personal and family plan. It was part of the subscription. It is going away February the 28th, so the last day of this month. Microsoft's response is, our goal is to ensure you and your family remain safer online. We routinely evaluate the usage and effectiveness of our features. As such, we are moving the privacy protection feature and will invest in new areas that will better align to our customer needs. So basically what you're telling me, there's nobody use the thing. Well, it did have a 50 gigabyte cap. Maybe somebody's watching more porn than 50 gig. I don't know. But
could be.
I feel like this was a miss on Microsoft's part, because Google had a VPN as part of their Google One service. They discontinued their VPN six to 9 months ago. We did report on that one. I think it's bad that some of these VPNs are going away, because a VPN is a good way. It's a good way to circumvent things that you shouldn't, but it's also a good way to make sure that when you're in airports and public places and you're not in the comfort of your network and in your home or on a hotel Wi-Fi, a VPN is another layer of protection. Some people don't know to go get the NordVPNs of the world and some of these other Surfsharks, private internet access, etc. So I hate to see it go, because I felt like this is a miss by both Microsoft and Google. They could have made it more prominent. They could have made it an automatic feature of saying, hey, we detect you are elsewhere, that we normally don't see you. Would you like to activate your VPN for extra security? How many people are going to answer yes to that? A good number.
And most, yeah. I would say
it's a miss, and it's a bad
definitely
thing
a
that
miss.
these servers are going away.
I had two notes. One, the accessibility of this feature. To your point, this should be something that was automatic, that popped up and was in a spot that people could understand, like, hey, I need to go here to trigger this, instead of just having a pop-up saying, hey, you're somewhere different, or you're looking to access something from, like, maybe Brazil for specific reasons. Maybe there's anime that's only allowed there, or there's, you know, some sort of song streaming service that is only in a different nation. You want to hear something from India, and this is how you get around that. Your location, aside from the porn stuff, this is just how you get around location stuff, and arbitrary barriers through VPN. People need to be able to either go in the browser or go in Windows somewhere. There's a button and be like, I triggered that. I turned this on. I don't think that was very clear. And two, I want to know, what are the resource demands for VPNs that are more extensive than the AI that is burning a hole through water, through electricity, and that they're willing to invest billions in, but not a VPN that could actually help people. Like, people can get an immediate return on investment. Users will, and then you can then turn that into, you know, dollars and cents by saying, "Hey, did you enjoy using the 50 gigs? Guess what? You get another 100 gigs at this amount, and whatever you were doing before, you can do more of." That is a one-to-one. That is, hey, I was doing something that I needed to use this VPN for, and now you're charging me to do more of it. That is a very clear-cut thing. For AI, we don't know what it does or what people are going to use it for, but everyone's like, I need to buy more data centers. I need to do this. And Microsoft's saying, we're done with the free VPN. Like, we're done with the VPN stuff. Unless it is burning, unless you need a nuclear power plant, which they're using for data centers, to run a VPN service, there's no reason to give up on it. Figure out a way to monetize it and put it in people's faces, because people will use it, especially now that people are worried about social media sites going offline or communications being tracked for specific reasons, or work stuff being scrutinized, or, you know, if you're a nationalist and you're saying, hey, my nation is potentially vulnerable to attacks from another nation, VPN usage should be going up, and you should be figuring out a way to make money off of that. I just want to know, like, is it, again, do you need a nuclear power plant to run VPN? And that's why you're saying, hey, it's costing us too much to give it out for free, or it's costing us too much to even be in this sector. Like, even only a 1% of your users are using it, if it doesn't cost you very much to generate it, keep it up. Those are my 2 points.
I'll give you a good example. I have 3 VPNs, 3 different places. You know how much it costs me to run those? 0.
Yeah. But hey, they'll invest in cryptocurrency, again, that also burns resources and computer chips and GPUs, but not VPN, because, hey, why help people? The last one we got is Windows 11 testing new features, from start menus to emojis. This is probably going to be our big update to Windows this year, 2025. To start off with, I'm going to try and go through this quickly so we can get to our gaming section and wrap this pod up. We got some features coming to, let me make sure I get my list here.
Yep, I'm beyond excited for these emojis. I mean, I'm sure you can tell.
You are brimming with excitement. I'm going to start off with the start menu first. This is the lock screen if you're watching the pod, but I'll get back to that in a second. The start menu is going to have AI, as with everything in the world is AI.
Whoa.
But what it's going to, yeah, the way it works is, and before you get your pitchforks out, your tar and your feather from me, I didn't do it. Don't kill the messenger. But Microsoft is fooling around with the start menu once again. It has to do it every operating iteration. This time around, they're going to offer you 3 views. You're going to still be able to have your jump list, essentially. You're going to be able to organize through your alphabet as well. But now you get this new version, which is folder version, and all your apps are going to be put into machine learned folders, things that you can't operate just yet. I'm not saying that they won't do it, but at least through the initial testing feature, right now everything's automated. So if you have like a bunch of Adobe apps in your jump list or just in your start menu, those will be grouped together probably in its own quote unquote creative folder. You won't get to name it, you won't get to put whatever's in it, but there will be a folder in this new view that will probably say creative. Right now in the demo that we see, and I got these screenshots from our friends over at Windows Central, Zach Bowden had a chance to run through it, and he's got a video which we suggest you guys go check it out. But again, you'll be able to see stuff like utilities and tools, which will have to start the settings menu, feedback, your sticky notes. There's another section called gaming, which has the Xbox game bar, the Xbox app, solitaire for some reason. I guess it's considered a game. Productivity, Edge, folder, file UI, file explorer, sorry, Notepad, and a bunch of other apps. And you'll be able to have smaller folders within this bigger folder. So you'll see 3 icons plus a group of 4 smaller icons. That's another view coming to this new testing version. We'll get drag and drop. It looks like you'll be able to easier to kind of pull files from specific apps into your file explorer. That's kind of something we've been looking forward to. We'll also be getting more access, or at least more icons on your taskbar, because you'll be able to adjust the size of that in settings. So you'll be able to go to settings and adjust your size so you can fit more things in your taskbar if you want to, or enlarge it and fit fewer things. Maybe you just don't want to see all the clutter. You just want 4 big buttons to go to that you always use. You'll be able to adjust those in settings. We'll be getting a color-coded power alerts. Basically, your battery indicator now will go from green to white. Green meaning that it is fully charged or charging of some sorts. I think it'll go down to yellow after it hits a certain percentage. When you are charging the system itself, I think it goes back to white, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I have that screenshot just in case. So again, people who are listening, you can get a chance to check it out. Yeah, there you go. We'll also be getting some lock screen stuff. And I think I showed that at the top, which we'll be getting widgets, a few more widgets, and support for a couple of third-party ones as well. But they will update obviously in real time. So if you ever in a situation where your computer locks itself and you want to just check out some information without fully opening it, it's gonna be kind of hard, because if you have Windows Hello, the thing automatically unlocks. But if you don't, if you have fingerprint or something else, you're able to see these kind of things right now. For one of the screenshots, we see that there's weather included, a watch list for stocks, Spotify, so you can activate your music without having to open up the PC. And I believe Zach uses a battery manager. I don't know the name of the third party that uses it, but it gives you pretty detailed information about the battery for the PC, I think. And then there's some updates to Recall as well. I think we're going to be getting. Before I get to Recall, there's also a new emojis section in the taskbar over near where you kind of scroll for your OneDrive, your Recall, your microphone indicator, or your Wi-Fi and sound and battery options. It'll be off to the right. But there's a dedicated section for emojis. Right now, you have to know the magical combination of Windows plus period to bring up that menu. This one will just sit in your taskbar. If you don't sit in your taskbar, you can adjust it to show up every time there's a field being entered. So if you're filling out something, or if there's a field being entered, this thing will then show up in the taskbar. So you can click on it and add your emojis as you type. And then when you're done with the field, it will disappear. So we'll take up that 4 pixel section or whatever, how many pixels it takes up. It's very small, but it's indicated by an up arrow. And then, like I said, the last thing we have is recall. And then I think with Windows Recall, there's and Click to Do, there's now new productivity tools that people will be able to use. I believe we'll be getting the new AI-powered Windows search in these options. Finding documents, images, and settings will now be a little bit easier through this. But I think I don't know if we mentioned it, but I think we did a couple weeks ago. Windows AI search, which will allow get a deeper understanding of the files, the systems on your PC to help you search through that, and the web as well combined. That's always kind of been the goal for Windows search, is to get better and smarter. What are your thoughts on these features? And again, they're not groundbreaking, but I think as a totality, it's a nice mix.
It's a nice mix, and I think Microsoft is doing what Microsoft does. They always, they get their data from somewhere. And I saw this on another pod earlier this week. It's humorous for me, for Microsoft, Apple, or Google, or anybody to say, yeah, we don't get your data, but suddenly they're able to tell you, hey, so many percentage of these users use these features and so many percentage of these users didn't. So this is what we're going to do to tweak these features. And I think this is what Microsoft is doing here. I kind of chuckle over the emoji thing. Emojis are cool in a text message. I'm not going to use them in a email to a PR firm. I'm going to use them in text
How
messages.
hip you are?
And I would prefer that they not take up more RAM that I need for other things. The thing that caught my eye that you mentioned, I understand that everything's going to be AI organized and they're going to be grouped together, but it kind of goes back to the AI conversation. Do consumers know or care what's going on? This is a muscle memory thing. I'm not saying what is being added here is bad, but did we not learn from previous versions of Windows, when you start monkeying too much with how people access their daily stuff, Windows 8, you alienate people. I mean, then that's where people like Stardock make their money, though. These independent software companies, they make their money because they make the tools that put things back the way people want them. And the number one thing that you mentioned that caught my attention, that I hope they dig deeper on, is the AI search. I enjoyed Apple Spotlight. It just didn't go deep enough for me because we didn't have AI yet. I want to be able to start typing things into my search bar over here on the left-hand side. I keep things pretty default with my Microsoft setups. I like to be able to type in the search bar. It would be nice to start seeing things that appear in documents. It would be nice to see it intelligent enough to know, okay, he put his documents in the document folder. That's in OneDrive. He put his downloads in the downloads folder. I know where that is. And start using these AI features. Is it going to make Microsoft any money? Probably not. Again, consumers won't care how the data gets there as long as they get what they need. Good improvements. I'm not knocking the improvements. I'm saying we have to be careful how much we tinker with the daily habits, the daily workflows, and how much we force AI onto people, that it will change their daily workflow, or how they get to Adobe, or how they get to that spreadsheet they use every day, or how they get to Outlook to, check their daily work emails. We're not getting a Windows 2025, but this will do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like it's polishing an operating system, which is something that Microsoft tends to look over in an ambitious way. They're like, hey, here's the next biggest thing. And it's like, well, you didn't finish fixing the current thing. And I'm not ready for this new thing because it's too steep of a jump for me, i.e. Windows 8. They went full bore with it. And you're going from, again, if those of you who are younger in our audience and never saw what Windows 7 looked like or know what Windows 8 looks like, go back and check out some YouTube videos and you'll see the big contrast. There was a giant leap. And then not to say that Microsoft wasn't looking towards the future in a way that makes sense. And I think a lot of people, it was bore out that a lot of those features eventually do make their way into other things. It just wasn't evolved very well. It wasn't polished. It wasn't refined like Microsoft, like Apple does, where they take an idea and polish it to perfection. And so I think this update is polishing. It isn't a bunch of grand new ideas, although you might say AI is one, but it's being developed and worked in a way that is more polishing than anything. Windows search has always been there. They're using AI to polish Windows search. And so, the widgets on the lock screen, there have been icons and notifications on the lock screen. This widget is an extension of that. It's polish. The same thing goes for the taskbar. We've iterated almost countless times on the taskbar. They're just adding more features and accessibility and settings for it. You don't have to use all of them. It may seem overwhelming that we're throwing them all at you once. These are just things that you may monkey around with years into owning your next PC, saying, hey, you know what? I didn't realize that I can now see the battery percentage versus just seeing guessing it looks like it's 75%. It'll now show you at all times that there's 72% left on your PC. And people don't, sometimes they may not figure that out on their own phone until years later where they're saying, hey, how did you get that on your phone? Oh, I went into the settings and I changed it. Guess what? That just blew my world. Now I know at all times exactly where my phone is at. And that when it looks like it's about to turn red, that it's not at 13%, it's actually at 3%. I don't have another 20 minutes to use my phone. I better go find a charger now. That kind of stuff. So I'm all for these refinements, and I think it's going to be great. Let's wrap it up with what are you playing around with this weekend as far as gaming is concerned? What are you looking into?
Well, I played some Microsoft Flight Simulator last week. I was impressed with its detail. The career mode I thought was really good. That's something kind of new that Microsoft has thrown in there this year. So I'm going to suggest that people go try that out. Now, I will bring up something that we didn't mention on the pod. Madden 25 went to Game Pass, or goes to Game Pass this weekend, I believe. So make sure you pick up your Madden 25 and even play after the Super Bowl. I suspect I will get in a few rounds of Madden. It does not have to be football season for me to pick it up. And Delta Force, we talked about that briefly earlier in the pod. I have become a Delta Force player over the last couple of weeks. I will likely pick that up. It's kind of that time of year for me where football's over. I am a big NASCAR racing fan. I will stick with the simulator, but you don't have football 2 days a week anymore. So I will go pick up the Delta Forces, the other titles, the handheld options, and kind of see what's out there until we roll back around the football season again.
Okay, yeah, those sound like good options. And it's it's a nice variety you're offering people. You got a couple Sims and a war tactic game. So I
will, since they were remade, I will pick up the new, you guys can get a good laugh at this if you're old enough. The Sim Cities of the world. I tend to pick some of those up too.
You're a SimCity guy.
Yeah.
Nice. I do enjoy myself a SimCity. They've gotten so detailed though. It actually feels like work now. Because before I could just be like, here's where I want the water pipes to run. Now you gotta understand pressure and timing, and you gotta understand agriculture in a certain specific way. It's fun if you got the time for it. So I've actually just recently picked up. It's not part of my announcement, but for the weekend. But I have just started playing The Sims again, and that has been really fun. But as far as mine are concerned, I am playing the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Edition, or whatever that was called. Let me make sure I get the title correct on this. It is, Fighting Collection. I apologize. Because now it's on Xbox. Ironically, I bought a Nintendo Switch because that was where it was first announced, and I didn't seem that Microsoft was going to be able to get the deal negotiated just because of the way that their system worked. And it was very different from the way PlayStation and Nintendo had this I guess, certain engine that they saved when they brought over the new uh, when they created the new system, when they created the PlayStation 4 and 5 or whatever. They brought over this support for this engine. Microsoft didn't do that when they did the Xbox Series, but somehow they figured it out, and it is now on the system. So I have it on the Switch. I am now playing it for the Xbox as well because I am just a fan of that. There's a song. I don't know if you ever had a chance to play the game, but there's a song called "Take You for a Ride," and it was super annoying because all he did was repeat that phrase over and over. It's a very jazzy song. I'll play it later, maybe post editing or whatever. But I was addicted, and I loved playing all those games. So that is what I'm playing. The other thing I'm also messing around with is Hades. It is a pretty amazing game. It's obviously, I don't know, 7, 8 years old now, I think, at this point. At least 5. At least 5. Maybe I'm off. But there's a Hades 2 coming soon. And so I've been playing Hades, the original game, in preparation of this new game. For those of you who've not had a chance to play it, the kind of brief breakdown is that it is a rogue type gameplay from a top-down view. And you play as Hades' son, I believe, and you're trapped in hell. And you basically go around, button smashing to a certain degree. The graphics were pretty stellar. The game won all kinds of awards, in its heyday. So they went ahead and greenlit a second one, and I believe this one has something to do with the main character's sister in this. So you get a very similar type of gameplay, but you're going to get new gods, new animations, new fighting techniques, new graphics, probably. And I think there's part of an RPG building to the character in this version as well. So for those of you who are looking for something kind of fun to play that doesn't require a lot of multiplayer online presence, I would suggest getting familiar with that because Hades 2 is coming out soon. And I think that's going to be it for my gaming this weekend. If people want to talk about the next game, go ahead.
Between the Super Bowl and a little bit of gaming, I think we're both going to have a full weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And again, it's just nice escapism from the drudgery of work and politics and all the other things in the world. You can just kind of sneak off to. And again, if you have a handheld, it's even better because you're even more mobile. You can go somewhere that isn't, the specific room that everyone is thinking you're going to be in. Maybe you can hide from people too.
That's on my wish list. That's on my wish list. I want to do some hiding.
I think Lenovo is getting ready to start seeding some of their review units for the Lenovo Legion Go S. So if we get our hands on that, be sure that David will be first to let you guys know what things are as well. Where can people find you if they are getting ready to read up on your reviews?
Let's do that. David PAJ 1978. That's over on Blue Sky. And you can also find me I'm on Threads once in a while, but Blue Sky is my main hangout. And I'll be honest, I will go read anything on the other platform that's run by Mr. Musk under that same handle, David PAJ 1978. But really, if you want to talk to me, get a Blue Sky account. Dave, that's an okay social network for now. I enjoy time over there.
Okay, yeah, and you can find me at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky, and it's right there. That is where I am at 80% of the time. I do check notifications for Instagram and Threads, but unless I'm being notified, I am not on there actively. But on those platforms, if you do want to reach me, I'm at I'm at Kareem Anderson for both. And then I don't go on Twitter anymore, so don't look for me there. We hope you guys have enjoyed the pod. Get out and go play some games. If not, if you're outside your kind of thing, go out and go for a hike while the weather's relatively nice and we're getting into spring. And if hiking is not your thing, go do whatever is your thing. And we'll see you back here next week. Take care.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.